Hi, and welcome to my channel, Laura's Library Card. So this video is going to be my vlog for Midnight Sun. I took like the whole month of August to read this, but I vlogged sort of in 3 chunks, and so let's get started. Hi, so this is part 1 of a vlog that may or may not ever see the light of day for Midnight Sun by Stephenie Meyer. So I am on page 260, which is about 40% of the way through the book. That is not arbitrary. That is the spot in the book where we have now caught up to where the leaked version from 2009 ended. So I'm just I wanted to tell you what I thought so far for the first 40%. So I had that leaked version. I had that PDF. I still have it on my computer, and I reread it the last time I reread this series, which was like a few years ago. And so when I was first starting this book, I was like, this seems exactly the same. So I went ahead and actually pulled up that PDF, and I didn't do like a line by line comparison, but I just kind of like, you know, when I saw something in this version that I thought, is this in the other one? I did sort of like a Control F search. So I did notice that there are some differences so far. There are a few just like word choice differences. There's a part where Bella is like angry. I think it's in Port Angeles, like right after she's been rescued by Edward, and she's talking about how Tyler still is going to ask her to the prom. And in the like original version, Edward calls her anger like tiger kitten anger, sort of demeaning her feelings. And that has been replaced in this book. It's just like her anger. And then something else is similar where Rosalie is jealous kind of Bella's ability to have captured Edward's attention. And so Edward in the original version is like, oh, like Rosalie guessed with her shrewd female intuition, you know, what it took me this long to figure out. And in this version, it's just like her competitive intuition. So I think that those are 2 that I caught right off the, top. There might be other things too that I think are sort of have been updated to a 2020 like audience. I think that's been updated to be more kind of feminist. And the other things that I've noticed that are different is that there's a couple different spots, I put tabs on them, where Edward is talking to Bella and we see a scene that was not in Twilight. And I think that was a way to try to give Bella some personality. I think some people originally complained that Bella was like too Mary Sue. She didn't have a personality, blah, blah, blah. And so like there's a whole scene where right after she finds out that he's a vampire, she asks him a bunch of questions and he's like, next day it's my turn. And in the Twilight book, she's like, all day Edward peppered me with questions, everything from my favorite color and music I liked to my favorite gemstone. And so like we see that in this book, and I think that like that was an opportunity for a lot of development of Bella's personality and her likes and dislikes. I mean, it's really just sort of like a list of her likes and dislikes. There's really not a ton more of her personality, but one thing I do appreciate that was in the original version, and I think was done even better in this version so far, is that Edward analyzes Bella when he first is meeting her and interacting with her, and he like comes to all these conclusions, like based on things that she says, most of which were in Twilight, but some of which weren't. Like he concludes that she is a good person, and he concludes that she's a kind person. And I think that that helps really show how Edward could develop feelings for Bella, and also serve to give Bella a little bit more of a character. So that's sort of how I feel. The only other thing I can think of that I want to say right now is that there definitely has been also added a number of paragraphs about Edward like sneaking into Bella's room. In the 2009 version, like he has like basically like one paragraph of like, oh, should I or shouldn't I, when he first, like the first time he ever goes to Bella's house, her room at night. In this book, there's a lot more about that. Like he is feeling guilty, he's hemming and hawing, he's kind of like debating, he like justifies his actions because he like wants to keep her safe. And that's a lot, like even more sort of prominent in this version than in the original leaked version. I don't think that it like really like justifies anything still. I found it creepy on this read of Twilight. I'm finding it creepy now. And honestly, there's also a number of other scenes where we're seeing things that happened like with Bella at home where she was like by herself, or she thought she was by herself in Twilight, and we are realizing that like he is like hanging around her house, eavesdropping on her and Charlie's conversations, etc. So in some ways, I think that they tried to make Edward less problematic. I think they tried to make the text less problematic. And I don't know that all the changes were effective. So that's my take on the first like 40%. Those are the differences I've noted from the leaked version. I do feel like part of the reason why this book is so long is like partly because Edward doesn't sleep and there's like time to kill that way, but also like Edward is a vampire and he thinks way faster than Bella does. And so in this book, there's like multiple sentences between every sentence between the two of them in conversation. In Twilight, it's like he said, she said, he said, one sentence of narration as she thinks and then she responds. In this book, it's like he said and he like thinks about what he wants to say and he like finishes his sentence and then he is anticipating what she's going to say and trying to read her face and then she says it and then he's puzzling over what she could have possibly meant and how it never, like, you know, it's always unexpected. And then he responds and then he is listening to hear like what other people are saying in the room. And so it's just like every scene, especially with other people, is just like kind of dragged out, not necessarily in like a particularly slow, painful plotting way for me personally, but like that is why there's so much length so far. So I'm going to try to read I marked like about the 72%, 75%. It looks like it's right at the end of the baseball scene, like right like as James and Victoria are coming. So that's where I'm going to read up to, and then I'm going to try to do another little vlog update, and maybe this will be seen by somebody someday. All right, tune in. Here's me in the future. Hey guys, I'm just jumping on here to talk about the next chunk of Midnight Sun, my vlog, which I put in quotes because I read 150 to 200 pages of the next chunk and then I stopped reading for like 10 days. So I'm gonna try to remember what I thought about those 200 pages. But anyway, so the last time I updated, I think was on page like 261, which was where the draft met up with this book. So it's finally like new stuff in this section. So the chapter 2 after that is Bella and Edward getting to know each other. Edward is asking Bella a bunch of questions about her family and her likes and her dislikes. And I thought this section was kind of interesting because I felt like it functioned to give Bella more personality. I felt like we got to really know more about her and we got to see her from Edward's point of view, and Edward is realizing how good and kind and brave she is. So we're starting to see Bella that way too. So I actually liked Bella's characterization more in this book after we had these chapters than I did in Twilight. And I think that this was sort of an attempt to address like Bella's Mary Sue or blandness. So I felt like that was kind of interesting. I'll say one of my biggest peeves or things that I felt was really happening throughout this book is that Edward thinks much more and much more quickly than Bella. So throughout the whole book, but especially in these next couple chunks, the next chapters during the meadow scene, Edward keeps having these thought tangents. And so it kind of is annoying to me because I felt like they were like background information that was not interesting, but they were like info dumps. sometimes these even happened like in the middle of a conversation. Sometimes they even happened in the middle of Edward speaking. He would start say 2 sentences, his brain would think off of something, we'd have 10 paragraphs of him like remembering this anecdote, and then he would come back to the same topic and like kind of tune back into the conversation and finish that thought. And so like as a human who has familiarity with what's happening here, even there was a time or two where I was like, wait a minute, like what's happening here? Like what conversation are we in the middle of? So this happens in the meadow scene where he is so preoccupied with her and making sure that Bella is safe and comfortable and happy. And he keeps kind of trying to like distract himself. All these like thought tangents make Edward seem sort of erratic, and that was happening in the meadow. And therefore to me, it didn't feel like this like culmination of a romance the way that scene comes across in Twilight. It wasn't this little mini like climactic romantic moment. I mean, it was romantic, but it like didn't have the same like satisfaction as it did in Twilight, I guess. I don't know. It's hard to be like enjoying that when Edward is thinking about and calculating how many bugs are in the like parks or whatever. I'm like, okay. After the meadow scene, we have Edward kind of revealing to Bella that he's been like watching her sleep at night, and Edward is basically like, they kind of gloss through this section, but Edward is like, I expected her to be upset with me, and then he's like pleasantly pleased when she's not, and he's sort of recriminatory, words are hard, but that's never really addressed, and they just kind of move on. And then after that, he takes her to the Cullens household, and where she kind of like officially meets the family. I had not remembered that Rose wasn't in that scene, even though I just read Twilight. I forgot that Rose like wasn't in that scene. But I thought it like was interesting because Edward was sort of like he was so pleased, and I felt like that came across really well, that he was pleased that Bella was there in their house and was like so accepting of them. So I felt like that went well. And so I finished, I'm wrapping this up, I'm at page 500. It was just the baseball scene where Edward has invited Bella, and that all of the Cullens are playing baseball during the thunderstorm. And that was kind of annoying because there was a lot more baseball from Edward's perspective. From Bella's perspective, she like sees the first play or two, and then it's like she's settled in to watch, and it's like basically not really discussed. She's like trying to follow along. In Edward's point of view, it's like, let's take 4 or 5 pages to kind of like excruciatingly talk about what plays are happening. And I was like, yeah, okay, you're playing, we get it, you're fast. But it was kind of interesting to see Alice's visions when the 3 nomad vampires are about to come to the clearing, because the whole, like Edward describes it as like the whole future spinning out of control in a way that they weren't expecting. It was like, you know, like they were expecting these vampires, like he had given Bella some warning, which I also did not remember from the Twilight, that there would be visitors coming. And so it's really interesting to me that all the vampires like are on edge immediately, not only because there are these unknown vampires and Bella's there, but because Alice and Edward are realizing that Alice's visions are changing like extremely, like to this huge extent, which I felt was really interesting and had not been part of my understanding of how things were when I was reading Twilight. So I have the last kind of chunk, it's a little less than 200 pages, and then I'll be finished with Midnight Sun, and I'm going to tune in at the end to kind of give my overarching thoughts. Thanks, bye. Hi guys, sorry about the angle changes and stuff. I'm trying to make room for a bookshelf that's going to go like right here, and stuff kind of has already gotten moved around, so hopefully you can see me. Feels like you're like really high. Anyway, okay, so I finished Midnight Sun, and it only took all of August to do so. So when I first started this last chunk, which was like page like 500 till the end, it's like right when they first, the the stranger vampires have shown up, and it's the end of the like baseball game, and there's gonna be like, they're in the field. At first I was kind of like bored with this section. I don't really know why. I just was kind of like, I know what's going to happen. And I was like not looking forward to the part where Edward and Bella were going to be separated, because I just didn't think that that was going to be very interesting. But yeah, so this last chunk of the book really surprised me. One thing that sort of surprised me was Jasper. So he uses his talent in a way that I don't think I ever appreciated from Bella's point of view, because in that scene, right, like when the Cullens are first meeting these like strangers, Laurent, Victoria, and James, like Edward realizes that Jasper is projecting his talent so strongly in a don't notice me, I'm boring way, that like it is affecting that these new vampires like don't even look that direction, which was really cool. It was something I was like, oh, I hadn't realized that like Jasper could do that, and it was like helpful in a way that like that Bella never realizes, I don't think. So I thought that was kind of cool. And then later again, when everyone who goes to Phoenix is in Phoenix, Jasper, Alice, Edward, Emmett, and Carlisle are all together in Phoenix, and they have like landed, and they're trying to like race to get to Bella, who they already know is meeting James at the dance studio. Jasper is again using his skill for like battle focus, is how Edward thinks of it. Like he realizes that Jasper is able to make all of them work together so flawlessly, that it's like their plans are working better. And also like what Edward is being distracted when Alice is having visions of like what is starting to happen or about to happen in the dance studio, aka like Bella getting hurt. Edward is like, Jasper is able to like touch him, and Edward feels numb. So I really felt like that was a cool aspect of seeing Jasper's talent that we hadn't had a chance to really see much of in this book or in the Twilight series. So I really like that part. The part where Edward and Bella were actually separated, where Edward and Carlisle and Emmett were off hunting or tracking the tracker or hunting him or whatever, that was starting to kind of drag a little bit for me. I mean, it was like, it was more interesting than I thought it was going to be, but it was also kind of frustrating because Edward is very frustrated. And also he is trying to track this guy, and they rely on Alice. Like Edward so many times in this series and in the Twilight series is like, Alice is not infallible, like the future keeps changing. He himself is like determined that Alice's you know, future vision of Bella turning vampire should not be like ever come true, and yet like Edward 100% relies on Alice's talent in that part to tell them which directions they should go and that kind of thing. So that was kind of like annoying, but I will say I really enjoyed after they have rescued Bella, and it was very interesting to see from Edward's point of view, like his mental anguish as he is like trying to stop and help her and stop bleeding and suck out the poison, blah, blah, blah. That was fine and good. On the way to the hospital, Edward is like reading Alice's mind as she has these visions, as she plans how to like take care of the things they just planned. She has to arrange for the hotel room, for like the scene of like her accident. They have to like Alice has to like steal some blood to arrange that. She also has to like get clothes and like send Emmett home. So this was a really interesting, I felt like it was done really well because Edward is watching Alice have the visions of like how she's going to go about setting up their alibis and arranging for like Emmett to go bring like Bella's truck here, etc., etc. And there's like a moment where she like is imagining things, and she's like, I want to be able to like look at the time. And so and then like in her vision, she like looks at her wrist, and her wrist is bare. And so then like in current time, she's like, Jasper, I need your watch. And then she's like replaying the vision, and then she has the watch on her wrist. And then like, there's another moment where exactly the same thing happens. She's like playing out this vision, and she wants it to be a little different. So she's like, I'm gonna do this. And it's like a fun so for me, I like laughed out loud a couple times because it was like, Vision pauses, she rewinds, she replays it. And so it was a way to show the reader that the Cullens are meticulous and careful about how they plan things, and they had to like make this look like a real accident. They were distancing themselves from the cars they stole. They were laying out and covering up all of their loose ends to make sure that everything went off without a hitch and they did not get in trouble, and Bella did not get in trouble. But like the way all of that was shown was never shown in Twilight because Bella was unconscious from during all this preparation. But I thought it was kind of a fun way to show how Alice is working with her visions and how Edward is working with her visions. And like during that like battle focus scene, Edward is working with Alice's visions, and because he can read everybody's mind, like Emmett is looking out one window and Jasper is looking out one window, and so Edward is like driving and has 360-degree vision of the car and the surroundings because he's looking in everybody's mind, and he also can see 30 seconds into the future because he's including Alice. So it just, I was sort of pleased with all of that revelation, and I felt like that was really fun for me to see how the Cullens like work together as a unit. And to some extent, like we had the three most talented Cullens with Alice, Edward, and Jasper all together and like sort of showing how their talents can work together to like accomplish this goal. And I just thought it was really cool. So yeah, and then pretty much the end, you know, there was like this prom scene, but oh, the only other thing I was going to say is that Edward really is setting up the plot of New Moon. He, in the hospital, kind of realizes, when Bella is in the hospital, he comes to the realization that like he is not good for her, that this is all his fault, like the fact that she ever was put in any danger comes back on him, and of course he can't abide that. And so he really has come to the conclusion at the end of Midnight Sun, like while she's in the hospital, that like he needs to be strong enough to leave her someday. And so that is like setting up the events of what we know happened in New Moon. I felt like that was good and interesting, and it was sort of interesting to see that Edward had been like planning this or come to this realization and knows that it's going to happen sometime in the future, all the way back in the events of Twilight when Bella gets hurt from James. Because I do remember feeling the first time or two I read New Moon many, many years ago that like it was sort of I remember thinking it was abrupt that Edward was like, oh, she gets a paper cut, I have to defend her from Jasper. Like that being the impetus. I remember being like, why? Why? And so I felt like this was good in setting up that like Edward had been plotting and planning his leaving her all the way back at the start of, you know, like this is like spring break or something, I think. And so he was like working on leaving her all the way from spring, and it takes all the way till September for him to manage that in the New Moon timeline. So yeah, those are all my thoughts for Midnight Sun. It was a long read. I haven't really seen that many things online. I've seen other people who've posted their vlogs and stuff, but I've not watched most of them just because I want to like support all those people and I want to see what they think, but I didn't want that to color my impressions while I read. So yeah, so I am now going to go watch a whole bunch of people's reaction vlogs, their reviews of Midnight Sun. I'm going to try to like kind of put that all together as part of my like Twilight video, because now I kind of have to do that now that I've read all the Twilight books and I've been teasing it on this channel for months and months. So yeah, overall, it's still sort of too fresh for me to give like an official rating. I think I managed to avoid giving all of the Twilight books ratings as I reread them this summer. Overall, my thoughts are that Edward is kind of whiny, and to some extent, he gives a lot of these like asides that are sort of filling in weird anecdotal backstory for himself and the Cullens. And I frequently felt like that kind of took you out of the story. I think I said that in my earlier vlog. But I found Edward kind of annoying, and he like thinks so much. It's just like every once in a while I was like, all right, dude, like can we like move along here? And like, I don't know, that's not very fair because I like seeing Edward's perspective, but like we never get like a break because Edward never like sleeps or anything. Like there's just never he's so in his own head, and he's so like reading everybody else's mind. It's like, I cannot, there was never just like a scene of something else happening that was like pulling me out of Edward. I know this sounds really weird, but like from Bella's perspective, she's like super invested in other people. And I think that like I couldn't get invested in Bella's point of view. Like in Twilight, Bella is thinking about Edward and is like thinking about him, like trying to figure out what he thinks, trying to figure out his world. And yet to some extent from Midnight Sun, that we already know Bella, we already know her point of view, we know what she's going to say, we know what she's thinking. So it's like, I was not able to be as interested in Bella as Edward is interested in Bella. Even though I found Bella more interesting as a character because Edward thinks so highly of her, I never, like, I was just 100% in Edward's point of view the whole time. I don't think I'm saying this very well. It just was kind of like, there was a point where I was like, all right, Edward, like, I'm a little tired of your voice. I wish I could like get other perspectives, even though it's a first person book from Edward's point of view. I don't know what I was expecting. And I didn't have that complaint in Twilight. Maybe I'm just sort of Twilighted out. I don't know. So that is all my thoughts for Midnight Sun. I'm going to end the vlog here. Thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned. Comment down below if you've read Midnight Sun, if you have any thoughts about anything I said in this vlog, if you want to tell me how dumb I am for reading Midnight Sun, do it. That'd be great. Otherwise, don't forget to like and subscribe, and thank you so much for watching this video. Bye.